Welcome to Wabasan Wire. Today, we're talking about Democratic Action Party Kipong Member of Parliament Lim Lip Eng's strong reaction to the proposal to ban alcohol on Malaysia Airlines.
Yeah, this was never going to just slide by quietly, was it? The whole idea came from a pan-Malaysian Islamic Party MP, a total alcohol ban on Malaysia Airlines, our national carrier.
And Lim Lip Eng's response,
Mm.
wow, it wasn't just disagreeing. It felt like he was drawing a line in the sand, right? Framing it immediately as this bigger ideological clash.
Absolutely. He came out swinging, basically saying the proposal itself was narrow-minded and that it goes against the whole spirit of Malaysia, pluralistic, democratic.
Exactly. It wasn't just some small policy tweak he was arguing against. It felt like he saw it as, a push to change fundamental public norms.
That's really the heart of it. You've got these two, fundamentally opposing views clashing head-on. On one side, the Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party, often advocating for policies that align public life more closely with certain religious interpretations.
And on the other,
The Democratic Action Party. They're generally very firm on secular governance, protecting constitutional rights for everyone, given our multiracial, multicultural setup. So what we need to do is unpack Lim Lip Eng's arguments, how he used legal rights, business sense, and even political priorities to counter this.
okay, let's start there. The rights and pluralism angle, that seemed central. What was his specific point about the legal standing of non-Muslims here?
He was crystal clear on that. He stated very directly that Malaysia isn't just one religion, it's pluralistic, multicultural.
Right.
Therefore, for non-Muslim citizens, choosing to have a drink whether you're on the ground or flying is a basic legal right, a personal freedom.
So not a privilege, but an actual right.
Precisely, a right under our existing civil laws. And he emphasized that this right can't just be, waved away or ignored because a political party uses religion to justify a policy change impacting everyone.
That makes sense. The worry being that if you start doing that with the national airline, where does it stop?
Exactly. That's the concern he tapped into, that using parliamentary time for these kinds of restrictions on public services, it chips away at the civil liberties of non-Muslims. It potentially undermines the social contract that lets a diverse country like ours function.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that would hit a nerve for many non-Muslim Malaysians. It probably feels like another step in a longer pattern of trying to impose one group's ideology onto public spaces, travel, entertainment, whatever, areas that maybe should just be run by civil law and, business logic.
Which is why his next move was quite smart, rhetorically speaking.
Yeah.
After laying out the rights argument, he pivoted. He went straight for the commercial angle and the perceived inconsistency, using big international examples.
The Gulf carriers comparison, that was quite pointed. How did he use them?
He used them to highlight what he basically called a double standard. He named names: Emirates, Etihad Airways, Qatar Airways, and Gulf Air. Big players.
Okay, all major airlines.
And crucially, they all operate out of Islamic nations in the Gulf, countries where religion is, central to public life.
But they serve alcohol on international flights.
Exactly. That was Lim Lip Eng's core point. These are massive, successful airlines based in Islamic countries. Yet when they compete globally, they understand the market. They know a total alcohol ban would likely alienate a huge chunk of their customers, especially premium travelers. It would make them less competitive.
So the implication is that the Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party is being perhaps more restrictive than countries often seen as benchmarks for integrating religious principles into governance. That's a strong charge.
It really is. It leads directly to a very challenging question he posed. Does the Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party honestly believe they understand Islamic principles better or apply them more strictly than these major Arab nations and their incredibly successful airlines?
Wow.
It sort of reframes the debate, suggesting the proposal might be less about pure religious necessity and more about maybe domestic political signaling rather than global business reality.
Okay, so if that's the argument that the Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party is driven by this specific interpretation, Lim Lip Eng had a, pretty sarcastic suggestion for them, right?
He did, yeah. That was probably the most talked about part of his statement. Pure satire. He basically said, look, if banning alcohol is such a non-negotiable religious point for you, stop trying to impose it on Malaysia Airlines. Go start your own airline. The Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party Airline, he called it.
Right, launch your own airline where you can implement absolutely everything according to your ideals, no compromises. But then he brought it crashing back to reality, didn't he, with a sharp economic point.
He did. Straight after the sarcastic suggestion, he asked quite bluntly how long an airline like that one deliberately limiting its appeal in the global market could actually survive, How long before it went bankrupt in the face of fierce international competition? It anchors the whole ideological debate back in, well, dollars and cents, or ringgit in our case.
Because running an international airline isn't like, say, a local bus route. You need global customers, tourists, business travelers from everywhere, Europe, China, America. Slapping on a major restriction like that, it just sends those passengers straight to competitors, doesn't it?
Almost certainly. It makes it harder for an airline that, let's be honest, already faces significant financial challenges.
Hmm.
It forces you to confront the fact that Malaysia Airlines is a business competing globally. It's not just an extension of a domestic religious agenda. Unnecessary restrictions just make passengers choose Emirates, Qatar, Singapore Airlines. And who picks up the tab if the airline suffers? Ultimately, Malaysian taxpayers often do.
And that brings us neatly to Lim Lip Eng's final point, which felt quite powerful, the whole question of political priorities. His argument was essentially, why are we, the members of parliament, spending precious time on this issue, especially now?
Yes, you could almost hear the frustration. He framed it as a serious misallocation of focus. Parliamentary time, he argued, is funded by the people. It's valuable. And debating whether non-Muslims get a drink on a plane is, in his words, a pointless issue when you look at the economic struggles ordinary Malaysians are facing.
So what did he say should be the focus? What are the real priorities?
The economy, front and center, the hardship people are feeling every day. He talked about the rising cost of living, serious inflation, the constant battle to keep the ringgit stable.
Things that affect everyone, regardless of background.
Exactly. Think about grocery bills, fuel prices, the cost of imported goods getting higher because of the weaker ringgit. These are the bread and butter issues. Can families afford necessities? Can they pay for education?
Yeah, when you put it like the debate about drinks on a plane versus people's daily struggle to make ends meet, calling it a waste of parliamentary time, becomes a pretty strong criticism of their duties.
It really does. He basically called the motion a distraction. He argued that Parliament should be laser-focused on economic solutions, how to stabilize the currency, how to bring down the cost of essentials, how to ease the burden of inflation on households, not, ideological side debates.
So this whole incident, it really throws that fundamental tension in Malaysia into sharp relief, doesn't it? The push-pull between protecting constitutional rights and freedoms for everyone versus the pressure to legislate based on specific religious views, even when pressing economic problems are staring us in the face.
Absolutely. It captures that divide very clearly. The rights argument versus the religious legislative push, all set against a backdrop of economic difficulty.
It really makes you think about what the priorities should be.
And maybe that's a good point to leave things on for our listeners. It does raise a big question for you listening right now. Considering all the economic pressures, the value of the ringgit, high living costs, fuel prices, everything, what issue impacting your daily finances, your life right now, do you believe politicians ought to be dedicating their time to in Parliament instead of issues like this one?
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.